Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to have Dr. Fanera here. So, Dr. Tracy Fanera is an environmental engineer scientist, public speaker, and television host with a bachelor's, master's, and PhD from the University of Florida's College of Environmental Engineering. In research, Dr. Fanera has developed water treatment technology strategies for sustainable design, aquaponics for space travel, and citizen science programs with over 1.6 million users to obtain publicly available environmental data. Dr. Fanera has international media recognition due to her expertise and science communication efforts during the Florida water crisis. Dr. Fanera is now the coastal modeling manager for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, where she manages U.S. coastal ocean modeling efforts to gain a better understanding of our Earth systems and threats to human lives and livelihoods in a changing world. You may have seen Dr. Fanera on the Science Channel, Weather Channel, Fox, or CBS, in Marvel's Unstoppable Wasp, or on the cover of Xylem's YSI's Mission Water. As of late, you may have seen Dr. Fanera's latest public appearances on National Geographic, where she discussed the aftermath of storms and solving the myth of shark bites being an anomaly in Florida, and an article on the Daily Mail for being named a finalist for SpaceX Around the Moon. And we're not done yet, you guys. Dr. Fanera also created Inspector Planet, which is an educational series where she travels to some of the world's most amazing places and some of the world's most gruesome, responding to environmental problems and solving them through principles of science. Her ultimate goal is to make the world a healthier place for all species today and tomorrow. So, hi, Dr. Fanera. I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited. So, as I just read, you are just so amazing. Your hand is in so many different things, and everything really just revolving around making the world a better place, using your science background to change the world, to change those around you, and to educate, which is amazing. When I think of a PhD, these are the things I think about. I think of people who change the world, I think of people who are committed to educating and giving back to the community. And that's what you do. That's a part of the reason why you're here today too. And so I'm so happy to have you here. So I like to start off.
Seriously, I'm
Yes.
honored to be here. You're amazing.
Oh, no, you're amazing. I'm trying to get your resume, girl. But so I like to start episodes off with an icebreaker. So for you, which is kind of the one I've been using the most anyway, because it's just so amazing to see people's transition, not even just from academia into like their own careers, but also from before college or before school, or maybe the freshman year of school when we're still figuring things out. So, why don't you tell us what was your very first job, either starting college or right before college?
So, my very first job, besides my entrepreneurial expeditions, was selling rocks around the neighborhood, selling people their own rocks, by the
Wait,
way.
what? You were
Um,
selling people that Oh my gosh. Girl, why are you not in sales?
well, I transitioned those skills. I'm honored to be here. You're amazing.
Oh, no, you're amazing. I'm trying to get your resume, girl. But so I like to start episodes off with an icebreaker. So for you, which is kind of the one I've been using the most anyway, because it's just so amazing to see people's transition, not even just from academia into like their own careers, but also from before college or before school, or maybe the freshman year of school when we're still figuring things out. So, why don't you tell us what was your very first job, either starting college or right before college?
So, my very first job, besides my entrepreneurial expeditions, was selling rocks around the neighborhood, selling people their own rocks, by the
Wait,
way.
what? You were
Um,
selling people that Oh my gosh. Girl, why are you not in sales?
well, I transitioned those skills when I was 14 into
Mhm.
selling cell phones.
Mm.
And from that, I gained some communication skills, some sales skills. So I
Mhm.
joined when I was in high school. I joined DECA, it's called. It was a business group, like FBLA.
Mhm.
That's another one. And I actually won nationally for the sales demonstration. So that was
Wow.
it was pretty cool. My very young uh work experience actually paid
That's
off.
awesome. Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, you definitely have, me being in sales, I could totally see your personality being very likable. Most salespeople are likable. So that kind of makes sense. So
Yeah, but as soon as someone's like, "I really don't need it," I'm like, "You know what? You probably don't."
right?
Like,
You probably don't need another phone. Like if
right.
the one you have is working just fine, you don't need it. So you have your bachelor's, your master's, and your PhD all from the University of Florida. And I do want to highlight a pretty cool fun fact about you, and it's the fact that you're probably the only PhD student to graduate without a PI. And we'll get to that. But why don't you tell us about your educational journey? What did you study for your bachelor's? What did you study for your master's? How did you matriculate through school, and why did you choose the majors you chose?
So my journey was quite interesting, and it was a journey.
Yes.
When I was in fourth grade, I learned about a hazardous waste dump site right down the street from where I was, where industries had been dumping toxins into a canalway that were leaching into the soils, the groundwater. People started building houses and schools, and there were cancer clusters and birth defects. Now,
Mm,
this happened before I was born, but the impacts lived on, and this started my understanding of how everything is connected. What we put
mhm,
into the environment eventually comes back to affect our health. It also started the EPA Superfund program.
mhm,
So I went through school, and I really was in between business and science. And my dad's like,
mhm.
anything you need to know about business, I can teach you. Science,
Yes.
I cannot. That's what you should
Mhm,
major in. So I went to
mm,
school to play lacrosse instead.
mm.
I did major in college in science. I was a bio and geo double major, up in
Wow.
Full. And
Okay.
my parents moved down to Florida. They're like, "You can't go more than an hour and a half from home," and then they moved to Florida. So they're
Mhm,
calling every day. They're like, "It's wonderful. The weather's beautiful here." And I'm like going
mhm.
up to the field house to play lacrosse, up hills both ways through the snow, miserable,
Yes.
sick all the time. And so I applied
Yes.
to the University of Florida. They rejected
Awesome.
me.
Oh, wow.
So, right. So I was like, "No, no, this isn't
Yeah.
happening." So I took my transcripts and I knocked on every door until someone answered. And it happened
At
to be
UF.
yes, at UF,
Wow.
at the University of Florida.
Yeah.
And so it just happened to be environmental engineering. And
Wow.
the guy that I talked to, the chair, Dr. Chaddick, he told me that what environmental engineers do is they protect people from natural disasters, make sure people have clean water, enough
Mhm,
food, clean air. They're
mhm.
basically the superheroes of the planet. And I was like, heck
Yes.
yeah, sign me up. And everything kind of from that fourth grade lesson came full circle. And
Mm.
I ended up being exactly where I was supposed to be. It's crazy.
That is awesome. Wow. And that persistence is amazing. Like to be rejected and like, hell no, here I am knocking on every door, until someone answers me. That's so awesome. So your bachelor's was in science, environmental
Engineering.
engineering, and your master's environmental engineering. So what did you focus your thesis on for your master's degree?
Well, after undergrad, I actually didn't have the grades to go to grad school. I
Hmm.
did the entire 5-year program in 3 years. It was really tough, but it
Yes.
resulted in me not having the grades.
Yeah.
I UF environmental engineering at the time was top five. You needed a 3.75 GPA to get in. I did not have that. So
Hmm.
I went and worked. I needed money anyway. And I
Yeah.
took the first job I got,
Hmm.
and it was in land development. And I
Wow.
saw that we were
The universe
mismanaging our
keeps
land.
pushing you into to the planet.
Yeah, seriously, it was the universe literally said, "Look at what's happening. You don't know about this, but
Right.
this is what you need to be fixing."
Right, right.
Yeah, so I mean, I would tell the clients, "Listen, I can save you time and money if you do things more sustainably. You don't even need infrastructure."
Hmm.
And they were like, "Nah." I know how long it's going to take me, how much it's going to cost.
Right.
I'm just going to do it the old way.
Yeah.
So I went back to school to prove that there was a better way. And
Mm,
so my master's was focused on developing a water treatment technology to clean stormwater and encourage infiltration right where rainfall lands. So basically,
mm,
we have this water cycle, and then we manipulate that water cycle by putting concrete on our land. So all the
mm,
water that used to infiltrate into the ground, be treated chemically, physically, and biologically.
mhm,
Now we're running off concrete and asphalt, really high rates,
mm,
high
mm,
volumes, causing flooding and
mm,
erosion and ecosystem changes
right.
and algae blooms,
Mm,
bringing everything that we put on the ground into our natural water bodies. And
wow.
so that's what I really focused on for my master's. I was a storm chaser
Wow.
and I was chasing storms to test this treatment technology.
Yes.
And then I needed to go bigger.
Mm,
And I had, if we ever want to really get into the lessons that I learned through grad school with picking advisors and
mhm.
when to bounce and when to stay, uh, I can talk about that all day. But
Yeah.
it was supposed to be a PhD, and I ended up just turning it into a master's and
Mhm,
creating the PhD that I wanted to do.
mm,
With the experience that I saw from being in the field, there's so many academics that have never been in the real world,
mm,
and I wanted to use my experience and the problems that I saw to create a solution. So,
right. And Tracy,
my
what was the time frame? So you finished your bachelor's in 3 years and then you went in the workforce. How long were you in the workforce before you came back to do a master's?
3.5 years.
Okay, 3.5 years. Awesome. And then you came back to do your master's. So why? I mean, they didn't accept you before because of your grades. So do you think they accepted you for your master's because of your work experience?
Absolutely.
Okay.
My work experience and every now and then we get guardian angels, like someone
Hmm.
that really is a good mentor. And for
Yes,
me,
yes.
it's Dr. David Mazik. And I called him
Hmm.
uh out of the blue in 2000, whenever it was.
Hmm.
And I was like,
Hmm.
I want to go back to grad school. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna make it happen.
Wow. That's
Um,
awesome.
and so I got really lucky. He's also the one that told me I couldn't graduate with the 5-year program in 3 years, and I did it anyway. And he was also the one that told me I didn't have the grades to get into grad school back then.
Yeah. And you
So
got in
it's
anyway.
right. He let me in anyway
Yeah.
eventually.
Yes, that's awesome. So you came back and you focused your masters on pretty much the problems that you tried to solve from your previous employer.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so then after that, you went straight into your PhD program.
Yeah. And the research that I did for my master's
Hmm.
kind of fed into it. I
Yeah.
used that as one of the engineering strategies to restore an urban environment. So basically, my PhD was focused on low impact development retrofit
Mm.
or hydrologic restoration, or basically just mimicking the water cycle
Hmm.
through engineering design,
Hmm.
going back into an urban environment or any environment and implementing these design strategies that remove pollutants and
Hmm.
encourage that natural water cycle, that percolation right where the rainfall is supposed to land.
Right.
And we have a lot of limestone in Florida, so it's not only ecosystem changes and algae blooms and the fact that we are in our mass manatee mortality event because of our hydrologic changes
Hmm.
over decade.
Hmm.
But also when we're pulling so much water from the ground and then we're not letting it seep into the ground, we're putting it somewhere else,
Hmm.
we're going to get sinkholes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and those have been increasing in intensity and frequency as time goes on.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. So how do you mimic when you say you guys mimicked the water cycle? Tell us what's the water cycle?
Yeah, great, great question. So you might notice at your house that right now it rains.
Hmm.
Rain hits your roof, goes down a gutter, down your driveway into a storm sewer, and in Florida, 100% of that water goes to a natural water body.
Hmm.
So before all of that concrete was there, the rainfall fell, infiltrated into the ground, was brought up by plants, evapotranspiration, and then that water evaporates or it was on the ground and evaporated back up into the sky and falls down as rainfall again. So what we've done with putting all this concrete is not only change the water quality,
Mhm.
reaching certain areas in our watershed, but also the quality.
Mm.
Everything from fertilizers, insecticides, herbicides, everything we throw out our car windows, all of that ends up in our natural water bodies and ends up getting there really fast by the way that we've designed to prevent from flooding.
I see.
So yeah, so
Mm.
that's in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So what my research was can we restore it? Can we make it
Mm.
look like nothing is built on top of the ground?
Can we?
Yeah, we get really, really close, at least
Yes.
92% close,
Okay.
depending on your watershed and your
Mhm.
geology.
Mm.
Um, but for me, like that disconnection of that impervious surface. So when it rains and the rain hits your roof and down your gutter, if you
Mhm.
put that water into a cistern and let it go into a rain garden or an infiltration trench or a pond or whatever it is on
Mm.
your property
Mhm.
or on any property,
Mhm.
not only does it increase aesthetics, it improves habitat, but it also slows down that water, prevents from flooding, ponding,
Mm.
and cleans the water naturally before it
Wow.
ends up in our natural water bodies.
Wow. So, how could we, if someone's listening and, we own a house, how could we make a difference? Would you recommend us like making a pond, like putting a pond or we would have to have some engineers come out and make sure that the pond is in an area where it streams into it. Like if I wanted to, if someone listening today wanted to make a change right now, like what could we do?
So easy.
Mm-hmm.
All you need to do, cut off that gutter,
Mm-hmm.
have it go into a rain barrel
Mm-hmm.
or a cistern,
Mm-hmm.
which is just a storage tank of water,
Mm-hmm.
and then have that bottom downspout go into a garden. Use native plant species. That's really important because we want to reduce the amount of fertilizer and insecticide that we need. Not only are we running out of phosphorus sources, but those nutrient loads
Mm-hmm.
going into our natural water bodies wreak havoc from algae blooms and low oxygen levels and just shock to the system.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do that right now at your own home
Mm-hmm.
and improve the way your house looks from the outside as well.
Nice, nice. Maybe I'll ask you to send me some pictures so I can put it on the YouTube channel.
Oh,
So
I am going to give you my whole chapter and my dissertation to take all the pictures.
awesome. Awesome. So you finished your masters and then you went straight into your PhD. So were there any major differences between your masters and your PhD? And I know we spoke before and there was no one in the college who was able to really support the research that you wanted to do. So how do you graduate without like a PI? And what was that research that no one had experience in?
Yeah, so no one had any experience with modeling. I was doing integrated modeling to show
Hmm.
that improvements to that urban environment by implementing those designs can
Hmm.
actually restore the hydrology.
Gotcha.
So there were no real modelers or low impact development civil engineers. Like it was I was the first one to go through and do that in
Mhm.
environmental engineering. So there
Wow.
wasn't really anybody to mentor me. There was a hydrologist,
Hmm.
and he was such a brilliant guy.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, he was an alcoholic.
Mm.
So, and he didn't tell me that he wasn't showing up to classes, so I couldn't even cover for him.
Mm.
And it breaks my heart because he's such a good scientist. And he ended up getting let go from the university.
Mm.
Um, and so he really didn't have that modeling experience. He
Mhm.
he dabbled in it a little, but
Mhm.
what I was doing was really involved. But I
Yes.
had my work experience that was focused on using modeling
Right.
for civil engineering design. So
Right.
so
Right.
I was fine on my own.
Right.
But when he left, I had to have someone mentor me. So
Yes.
so two really nice professors, they didn't have the bandwidth, but they stepped in
That's
to,
awesome.
play the role.
Yes.
But yes, but luckily I didn't have to use them too much.
Yes.
They really helped at the end with editing, going through, reading it, saying,
Yes.
we missed a spot.
Okay. Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So after finishing your PhD, where did you land your first job?
So I graduated with a presidential management fellowship.
Mhm.
So anybody's that's in grad school and graduating, I highly recommend this. This is a fast track through the federal government, and it's just an amazing opportunity. Uh, but I had an offer for a nonprofit where I would be running my own research program and I can basically do anything I wanted with it. And it was
Wow.
focused on both education and outreach as well as research, which really just means that you have two jobs. Like
Yeah.
I was working around the clock.
Mhm.
Not that we don't already as scientists, but this was a little extreme.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I loved every single minute of it. I worked
Mhm.
at Marine Laboratory running the environmental health program.
Nice.
And so, yeah, historically it had been funded on Florida red tide research. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. But very quickly I got into it because I was focused on a different species for my dissertation preventing cyanobacteria blooms.
Mm.
This was a marine species.
Mm.
And so it was definitely a challenge, but because it was such a threat to public health,
Mm.
recreation,
Mm.
and economics,
Mhm.
that 2018 water crisis, and even before that, when I started in 2015, these blooms, how they affected people,
Yeah.
they it really it just lit a
And these are
fire
the
of
algae
passion.
blooms, right?
Yes,
So tell us about this because I've been following you for some time now and I know about it from you, but if someone's listening now and they're like, "Wait, what happened in 2018? What are the algae blooms?" Like tell us a little bit about this.
right. Yeah. So there's a lot going on in Florida. We have a very dynamic environment. We get a lot of rainfall. We have a lot of wildlife, very
Mhm.
diverse. But we do have some, we are impacting the environment in many different ways. So, and we have a lot of natural phenomena too. So
Mhm.
over the millennia, we've gotten over 70% of our oxygen from phytoplankton. They're essential for the ecosystem. But a few of those species are actually harmful, meaning that they release a toxin into the water that can harm aquatic life.
Mm.
Well, Florida red tide, the species Carenia brevis, is one of those species endemic to the Gulf of Mexico.
Mhm.
And what makes it so unique is that the toxin not only is released into the water, but it can actually aerosolize, meaning that it can attach onto sea salt particles in the air, move
Mm.
on shore with winds, and
Mm.
cause coughing or sneezing in people that are healthy. But for those that have asthma or COPD,
Yeah.
this can be really serious.
Mm.
And back in 2018, we have a bloom every year.
Mm.
Every year we have a bloom.
Is
Every
there like
decade
a
or so we
season
have.
for it? There's allergy season. Is there like a bloom season? Or
That
it's
is
just you just don't know?
That is an excellent question.
Mhm.
Blooms, we used to depend on blooms starting late summer, early fall,
Mhm.
lasting till early winter.
Mm.
Now, in recent years, we've seen that shift, and
Mm.
and I have a hypothesis about that. So
Is it global warming? The
it's
shift?
yeah,
Is that the hypothesis?
it is.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So I
Mhm.
mean, the reason why we still have so many questions about Florida red tide, the initiation, the dissipation of these blooms,
Mhm.
is is because it acts differently in the natural environment than it does in a laboratory. It's a very
Mhm.
small species in a huge body of water. And
Mhm.
this phenomena is impacted by Earth systems.
Mhm.
And you can't just look at it as a global or as a local event because it's not. Nothing is
Mhm.
a local event, in my
Mhm.
opinion. Um, but the species in a laboratory, not saying that it can't survive out of this range, but it
Mhm.
does best between 65 and 86 degrees.
Mhm.
Now, in the Gulf of Mexico, the the minimum temperature is increasing faster than the maximum temperature. You always hear oh, the highs, the average, you
Mhm.
always hear that, but you don't see that
Mhm.
that minimum temperature is increasing
Mhm. Mm.
more rapidly
Mm.
than the high temperatures.
Mm.
So with that low of 65 no longer being reached,
Yeah. Gotcha.
that might be one of the reasons why we're seeing not only the blows start later, but
Yeah.
also last all the way through summer, like we're seeing right
Wow.
now, like we
Wow.
saw in 2018.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you combat it? I mean, during those seasons, do you recommend people to wear mask? Do masks work? Does an N95 mask work? Like how? you
It's
know?
so it's so interesting that you say that because
Mhm.
back in 2018, when I wanted to develop an air scrubber
Mm.
for the beach during red tide blooms because no one would wear a mask, right?
Mhm.
No one would wear a mask.
Yeah,
Who the heck is gonna wear a mask in public?
right. Or on the beach.
Then 2020 comes along. and everybody's very comfortable wearing
Yes,
masks.
for sure.
But masks would work.
Yeah,
I mean, it does filter out sea salt particles, which the toxin attaches to.
gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, as far as these blooms go, some scientists think that it's a naturally occurring phenomenon and needs to
Mhm,
happen to reset the ecosystem. These
mm,
blooms do start offshore. The
mhm,
species is a real slow grower,
mhm.
but it can eat almost anything. And
Wow.
when these blooms come close to shore,
Yeah,
that's when humans can actually impact it. Our
yeah.
fertilizer runoff, wastewater overflows. We had an abandoned phosphate mine release 200 million gallons of wastewater high in nutrients into Tampa Bay. Back in 2018, we had a lot of nutrients coming from a big lake in the middle
Mhm,
of the state called Lake Okeechobee. In
mhm,
addition to that, we have a lot of nutrients coming in from wastewater overflows, from fertilizer runoff. I
mhm.
mean, we just keep on building on the coastline because that's what people want.
Right.
But there's major implications
Yeah,
with that.
for sure, for sure. And so your work at the nonprofit, that's, you focused on those algae blooms and protecting humans. So what did you do after the nonprofit? Was it NOAA?
Yes. So because of that 2018 bloom, and we did
Mhm,
have a dual bloom, we had a harmful species of cyanobacteria
mhm,
inland that was released into our coastal waters with the red tide bloom. It
mhm,
was mass hysteria. I mean, it
mhm,
really was a water crisis.
mhm,
So I was to combat the crazy amount of miscommunication that was going on through social media.
mhm.
I tried to do as many presentations to the public because I realized that they listened to me a lot better in person than they did online.
Yeah.
So I did hundreds of talks, and one of those talks, someone from NOAA saw
Mm,
me speak, and he came up to me after, and we were talking, and I told him I was a modeler by expertise, actually, and he was
yes.
like, "Oh, we're looking for one of those."
Wow.
It wasn't until a year and a half later that that
Mhm.
job became available. So
Wow.
I put in my application somehow.
Yeah.
Somehow I got this position, and I I am so humbled by it every day because I have so much to learn. I have so much to learn, and I was so good at my last job, and it's just so important, like managing our coastal water models, like that's the information that we need to protect lives and livelihoods. So it's just, it's a huge job. It's not as, I gotta be honest, anybody from now, I'm sorry I'm saying this, but it's not as much fun. It's just not. I had a blast at my last job. In fact, I never felt like I was working. Not one day did I feel like I was working at a marine laboratory because it was just my passion. Um, but at the end of the day, I realized that we weren't solving Florida red tide because we weren't taking into consideration the fact that hurricanes, Saharan dust coming over from Africa, nutrients from 40% of the US might play a role. Blue holes might play a role. Water currents, weather events, everything played a role. And we didn't have these answers because we don't have these models.
Right.
And
Right.
it was the right, it was the right move. And I feel very lucky to have this position. I just really want to do a good job.
I'm sure you're doing a great job. I'm sure you are. It's, I think, and to kind of switch gears, I think us as women sometimes we're really, really hard on ourselves and we have these really high expectations of ourselves, which is great. And I think the that when we're in because as women we're usually multifaceted and we're usually used to doing multiple things at once and handling things, and I think sometimes it's interesting when we challenge ourselves, whether it be with a job or a new project or just an experience where we're learning to adapt. And sometimes that may be it's different from what you're used to, but I'm sure with your resume, your expertise, that you're gonna do a phenomenal job. I mean, how long have you been in the role now?
10 months,
Right, it's not
and
even a year. It's
it
not even
feels like
12
2
months.
weeks. Like
Yeah,
I learn something new every day. Every
that's
day there's an
awesome.
acronym that I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's industry too. Like even I can remember finishing grad school and moving to New York and working in like oncology marketing agency, and like everyone spoke in acronyms, and I still have a notebook full of acronyms that I just went to learn. And so after every meeting I would come back and like Okay. I would sit down with like one of the other fellows, like, what does this mean? What does that mean? This mean, that mean? So but yeah, I'm sure I can't wait to hear you like we'll have you back on the show 5 years from now, and I'm sure you're gonna say, oh, you know, I created this system and now this is implemented in NOAA's one of NOAA's policies for regulating Florida tides and stuff. So I'm
Yeah,
sure
5
of it.
years, I hope to be the director of the EPA or the director of NASA Earth
Mhm.
or, NOS. So we'll see.
Awesome. That is so awesome. And Tracy, in addition to, you know, working at NOAA, having this amazing role, you also run a educational series called Inspector Planet. So tell us, when did you start Inspector Planet? What sparked Inspector Planet? Give us some information about that.
So Inspector Planet started when I was in grad school. I was
Mm,
really I saw my friends, like, throwing garbage out the car window, and I was like, "Where do you
mm,
think that that goes?" And
right.
I realized that they didn't know, or they thought it went to a wastewater treatment plant when every
Mm,
single drop of water goes to our natural water bodies. But
right.
when I told them that, I noticed that their behaviors changed.
Mm,
And I was like, "Okay, there's something to this."
yes.
So I met in a freshman. It was her first football game,
Mm-hmm.
and she was by herself, and I befriended her.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out that she was a journalism student, and I didn't really put it together. She wanted to make videos, like
Mm,
she wanted to do film.
yes.
Um, and I don't know when I had this epiphany. I think it was when my 11-year-old cousin was worshiping Kim Kardashian,
Yeah.
and I was like, "No, there's better role models. You should want to be like." And I was like, "Oh my god, I don't know one female role model on TV to tell my little cousin about." And I was like, "You know what? Like, there needs to be more women in science putting themselves in positions where they're in the public eye, that they can be seen, that these kids can see their career path, so that they can understand that they're, like, being an Instagram model is not the end game, man.
Right. Right.
You're so much more than that."
Right.
And so I made a video about my dissertation research,
Mm-hmm.
called Inspector Planet. I picked that because Dr. Earth was taken, and I'm so glad,
Mm-hmm.
because Inspector Planet is Inspector Gadget and Captain Planet. So it's sustainability and innovation. And for me,
Wow.
true sustainability can't be an option with entropy always increasing. So you have to innovate in order to extend humanity's time on Earth, in order to try to maintain our quality of life.
Right.
Uh, Not that the quality of life doesn't need to be improved all over the world, because it absolutely does.
Right.
Uh, but so that's where the name came from. And then I
Mm-hmm.
made a video, Inspector Planet, and I covered, what I was doing for my research. And that's what Mythbusters picked up. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I got the first TV role.
That is amazing. So, going back to what you said about having role models in STEM and in science on TV and in the public eye, that is something that you have absolutely just dominated. So, as I mentioned on your bio earlier, you've been on the Weather Channel, the Science Channel, National Geographic, and as of late, you have been awarded a finalist for SpaceX. So, kudos to you. And why don't you tell us a little bit more about these experiences and really what it means for you to be in a public eye? Because, you know, I know you personally and you're just a humble, amazing, sweet person. And why, you know, and you're very open, you're very talkative, you want to educate, you want to share. So what do all these experiences really mean for you?
Wow, that's a really good question. So let me start with, I think it's really important for actual scientists, people that are in the field, to do communication, because there's a lot of science communicators, and we need them.
Hmm.
But there's something about actually going through a PhD
Hmm.
and actually doing the research, where certain details about how to communicate different science, because there's always an exception to everything. So it's really important that you make room for
Yes.
those exceptions when
Mhm.
you're communicating, because that's where miscommunication, misinterpretation of a communicator's words can be taken out of context.
Right.
So despite the fact that my schedule is crazy,
Mhm.
I try to make time for doing these speaking and being an expert guest on
Mhm.
a TV show
Right.
here and there. And an expert on the Weather Channel, which I love the Weather Channel.
I love the
It's
Weather
like
Channel
Christmas
too.
morning every time they contact me. I love it. And I have a
Yes.
show on there called Weird Earth, which I absolutely love too.
Yes.
Um, but I think it's really important that anybody that wants to pursue any kind of TV stuff, that they don't quit their day job. This is
Mhm.
not a career. This is a
Mhm.
hobby. Very
Mhm.
few people make TV a career, and
Yeah.
that's great that they
Mhm.
can. But for me, my credibility, my the whole reason why I keep on getting jobs is because I'm an actual scientist.
Yes.
And so I would encourage any young people out there that are going through school and see scientists on the TV and be like, I want to be that. If you really want to be that, then be a meteorologist.
Yes.
Uh, but but otherwise, because they really do science. They're,
Mhm.
most of them are actual scientists
Mhm.
and communicate on a regular basis. That's
Mhm.
why I love Weather Channel so much.
Yes.
Uh, but any other field, really, like, be a scientist first, be good, be the
Mhm.
best.
Mhm.
And then the TV stuff will just come. It
Yep.
will just come.
For sure. For sure. That's awesome. And just to highlight on maybe a few other things, I know that your your journey, because I know we kind of quickly went through your bachelor's, your master's, your PhD, and I know we spoke before, and I know you said you applied to like 100 jobs, and before you landed a job as the civil engineer land development position, and so like for someone who's listening who may know about your Instagram page or see you on TV, like what advice would you give them to not give up and to keep pushing? So when there's rejection or when when life just happens, like how like you seem so unstoppable. So like what advice would you give to someone who's wanting to find that unstoppable gene to keep them going?
Yeah, I mean, I am relentless, and that's because I got lucky enough to find my passion.
Yes.
But I always tell people this, there are lots
Mhm.
of jobs, transactional jobs that you can win every single day.
Mhm.
Every single day. Science is now, if you're going into science, you're going to lose. You just got to get used to rejection. You got to get used to
Yes.
loss. But I'll tell you, it's like playing that Super Mario Brothers game where you know the code to get to the last stage, and you
Yeah.
can win every single time by putting in that code,
Yeah.
and you have success every single time.
Right.
Well, with science, you're on a new game, new stage, new level with new enemies every single day, and you're going to lose a lot.
Yes.
But it's that 1% of the time that you actually win, that
Yeah.
you have the potential to change the world. And that is what has to drive you.
Mhm. Mhm.
If it
Absolutely.
doesn't, then you still work the gap.
Yeah. Right. Awesome. That's awesome, Tracy. Well, I want to leave with one other comment, and that is one of your initiatives, which is to have a mobile lab bus to get the public involved and enhance scientific literacy. So before we go, you have to tell us about your mobile lab bus.
So it's been my dream ever since before I even had Inspector Planet to have a mobile lab. Community science, and formerly called citizen science, is the best way to educate the public, to enhance scientific literacy of the general public, and to get everybody on board to make changes. It cuts through all these political lines that people have associated with scientific opinion.
Yes.
It's community science is really where it's at, and that's why I wanted to have an event response, because I'm also very impulsive
Hmm.
and I'm
Hmm.
driven, like, by events.
Yes.
So for me, being able to go to or respond to an event or a hazard
Mhm.
that people report on the citizen science app that I created over at my marine laboratory called CSIG. Uh, and to be able to take a mobile lab over there, get preliminary information before the media gets there so
Mhm.
that we can communicate accurate information to the
Yes.
public first.
Mhm.
That's really been a focus of mine. And finally, after a Tesla saved my life, and that's why I'm totally okay with going on a SpaceX ship because I trust SpaceX and
Yes.
Elon Musk. Uh, but after my Tesla was totaled, I was like, you know what? I need to do this. I
Yeah.
just need to do this. So,
Mm.
so I got the first part of my mobile lab,
Mm.
which is this monster truck Jeep, which I plan on helping with Everglades restoration, conservation with gators, pythons, but also I have microscopes in the back, all my water quality testing equipment, so I can go and respond to events,
Mm.
to water quality events, people suspecting different dumps, people getting sick,
Mhm.
animals getting sick,
Mm.
abnormalities, things like that.
Mhm.
That's what I've always wanted to do, and I want to have a team of geniuses that I can call on and to help me with each thing. And I had my interns at Moat, which they were my team.
Yes.
Uh,
That's
but that's
awesome.
really, and then I saw Black Panther, the end of Black Panther,
Mhm.
and I was like, that's it. I was like, that's exactly what I wanted, and I was bawling. I couldn't even talk about the end of Black Panther without crying.
Yes.
I
Yes.
still can't. I'm like tearing up right
Oh
now.
my goodness. Yes. Amazing. So, so amazing. Well, Tracy, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. You're the true definition of a white coat, white collar, but still in the white coat phase, still using your white coat to solve some of the world's problems. So, thank you for all you do. Thank you for your commitment to science and your commitment to helping the people of the world and the planet. You're so freaking awesome. And can't wait to have you back on next time.
Thank you so much for having me. Seriously, it's an honor. You're amazing. I love everything that you do, and it's so important. So, thank you for being you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. That concludes today's episode of the White Coat, White Collar podcast. If you like these discussions and want to continue hearing more, please subscribe and leave a comment on the platform that you've tuned into today. For more resources on unique career options for STEM and healthcare professionals, please follow White Coat, White Collar on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you love what I'm doing and would like to be a sponsor to help me continue demystifying the career landscape, please visit whitecoatwhitecollar.com/sponsor. Thank you for tuning in and all the best on your career journey. Remember, take the journey one step at a time and don't be too hard on yourself. You got this. Until next time.